Joining me now is filmmaker and journalist Ami Horowitz. Ami, President Joe Biden is notorious for repeating lies, verifiable lies, over and over again. And the latest example is the claim that inflation was at 9% when he took office.
I think inflation has gone slightly up. It was at 9% when I came in, and it's now down around 3%. And bringing down inflation, it was 9% when I came to office. 9%.
Inflation was actually 1.4% when Biden was sworn in.
Ami, why does he keep doing these? I mean, these are things you can check. They're not just matters of opinion.
No, it's, well, he was right in the sense that it was 9% a year after he came into office. No, on the inflation issue itself, he's made many, many lies. For example, that inflation was because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, when a simple math equation shows you the majority of the inflation actually came prior to the invasion of Ukraine. I mean, we can go on and on. We could talk about how his uncle was eaten by cannibals. Yes, that was something he actually claimed to be a fact. We could talk about he's arrested in Delaware for civil rights violations. And frankly, the worst of all, when he continuously says that his son was killed in Afghanistan, when his son actually tragically died of cancer afterwards. But despicably, he loves to trot that out when he's talking to families who lost kids in wars. He continues to trot out that particular lie, particularly despicable and terrible. No, but of course, he's never going to be called on it because he's parroting what the mainstream media wants to hear. This one is, again, the issue is the verifiability. If you're going to lie, Joe, lie is something that can't be checked. That would be my suggestion to you, a little gift for you. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
It's just incredible. Like, yeah, inflation was once 9%, but during your term, when you inherited office, the inflation was almost at rock bottom. So it's just such a bold-faced lie. US Vice President Kamala Harris, though, she's not doing much better. She's expressing her appreciation for young activists during a recent interview, praising their approach and how they aren't waiting around for the older generation to solve big issues. She highlighted things like their readiness to tackle policies on gun violence and climate change. But, Ami, these are strange comments to be making at a time when college campuses are overrun by these young activists disgracing themselves and disgracing these institutions of higher learning.
Yeah, I also, if you recall, I also recently took a tour around a campus with my American flag, and 15 of these great youth people she's referring to attacked me viciously and grabbed my flag. I think she needs to take a look around. Is she praising the people who attacked me? Is she praising the people who won't allow Jews to go to class on campus? She needs to be clear about what she's referring to. And by the way, I think she also needs to take a look at the poll numbers, because the 18 to 29 vote, which overwhelmingly went for Biden and Kamala Harris last election, seems to be eroding significantly. Because even them, even the 18 and 29, and by the way, if you know anybody who's under 29, they don't know anything, right? But even those people are smart enough to realize that this country is being driven into the ground, and the responsibility lies directly with this administration, which, by the way, happens to include Kamala Harris. So, yeah, I think she needs to recheck her little tour of the campuses, and maybe she'll recant it. I don't know. I doubt it.
Well, a law school in Boston is facing a backlash after graduates smeared red paint on their hands and held them up during their commencement ceremonies. Pro-Palestinian students used this symbol of bloody hands to protest the death toll in Gaza. Ami, you know perfectly well what this means. Tell my audience what those red hands symbolise. What event are these graduates glorifying?
Yeah, so there was a lynching in Ramallah a number of years ago where a Jew was murdered and ripped apart by Palestinian animals. And one particular thug, animal beast, took his bloody hands and he put them out the window famously and photographed it. I assume you're referring to that. That is the most disgusting display of savagery that I could imagine. But I think that these students need to pay attention a little more to the news. We've been saying this for a while, but even the United Nations has recanted and finally said, okay, we were lying for a long time about this war in Gaza, and they finally came to terms and reduced the number of civilian casualties by 50%, Rita. We all knew those numbers were lies, but everybody kept saying, well, look what the mainstream media is saying. The UN is saying it. And now finally, after the damage has been done to Israel's reputation, they finally came out and said, oh, we got it wrong. Actually, the Israeli numbers were right. And shockingly, Hamas numbers are wrong. Maybe those idiots on that campus, that graduation, to look at the fact that Israel has fought a war, historically low civilian casualties, two civilians for every one militant, as opposed to, and by the way, and that's when you have the most densely populated place on planet Earth, where Hamas is hiding civilians, using civilians as shields for themselves. And if you compare that to the NATO numbers of Afghanistan, well, the numbers were 5-1. Maybe those people should look at those numbers and maybe rethink their idiocy on graduation day.
Now let's talk about Snopes. Snopes, the so-called fact-checking site, has been embarrassed again, having to correct a fact-check about Ashley Biden, the daughter of US President Joe Biden, her diary. The disturbing claims in that diary are now listed as true, not unproven. Army, I mean, if this was Ivanka's diary detailing inappropriate showers with her dad and all sorts of other allegations, we'd never stop hearing about it. This would be well known across the board, but the contents of this diary have been memory hold. So many in the media have declined to report anything about it.
Yeah, the big issue here really is the fact checkers themselves, and Snopes and PolitiFact and USA Today and the like. I think one of the great accomplishments of the left was their ability to take over that entire industry and then brand it as unbiased, right? Above the political fray. And people have taken that and frankly done a great job of branding, because regular people look at these organizations, Wikipedia and Snopes and PolitiFact and so forth, as fact. And the reality is so far from that. I can tell you personally, I have had, with all of those fact-checking organizations, I have run into issues with them where they have lied baldly about things that I have said. I have forced several of them to recant. But of course, once it's released, the damage is done. And you know when they're lying, when all their mistakes are all in favor of liberals and none of the mistakes are in favor of conservatives. That really is the answer how they're lying. If it was even half-half, I could see how could they look, they make mistakes. But no, what the reality is that what they are, they look at what they want things to be and assume that must be actual fact, right? They basically have weaponized their bias. And again, it's been a very, very successful branding exercise, and they've sold to the public as you can look at us as unbiased when it couldn't be further from the truth.
Absolutely, and it's so dangerous because it is gaslighting on a mass scale, calling themselves fact checkers when they're often amongst the most biased activists in the industry. Armie Horowitz, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Always a pleasure.